know, one of the big cliches of show business is to say that a guest needs no introduction. It's rarely true, but tonight is one of those occasions. Thank goodness you've arrived.
Oh, isn't that nice? I'm so glad you've arrived too. Thank you. Thank you.
I was beginning to panic. Seriously, I thought I'd be doing my soft shoe shuffle here. What happened?
Well, I must say, we were just actually, there were so many cars. I've never seen so many automobiles for sale.
On the motorway.
Yes.
Well, we had a big football match in London.
I
That's the
know
trouble.
you did. I know.
However, I'm looking forward. I'm delighted you're here.
I'm
looking
delighted to
forward
be
to talking
here
to you
too.
later in the program. Ladies and gentlemen, Miss Ginger Rogers.
Oh, thank you.
Maybe his style of motoring doesn't fit in with the Rolls-Royce brigade. Indeed, he tends to show for himself rather quickly, too. Not long ago, he was just an odd job man saving up for motor racing lessons. He couldn't afford to put windows in his first racing car, and they wouldn't let him race. He quickly put that right, because in 1976, he became world champion racing driver James Hunt.
Nearly came unplugged then. I just got to get this into a comfier pocket because I couldn't get into the car with it in the back pocket.
You've got a mechanical mind, I hope, have you?
I don't know. Did I break it? Can anybody hear me?
Can you still hear James talking? That's very important, I think.
Hang on. I've lost this now. I'll tell you what.
It makes me, what's underneath the bonnet of that car? I mean, if it's like this, but amazing it gets around.
Do you know
the
what? I can get arrested by the unions for doing somebody else's work here, pinning this on.
Right, James. Nice to see you. Are we keeping you up late? Because you're in the middle of a race meeting. This is at Silverstone. And notoriously, you're the man with the lovely girls and the late nights and the champagne.
You're keeping me up very late, I have to tell you. In fact, when I agreed to do this, I didn't realise that we changed the clocks tonight. Because we haven't got too early a start in the morning, but I wouldn't, in fact, be out this late before a Grand Prix.
How are you getting on, by the way, at the moment?
Well, I was fourth fastest today in practice on the second row of the grid. Didn't have a brilliant day. It's a bit fraught with the one-day practice thing. Had a bit of trouble with the car, so just have to keep the fingers crossed and hope it goes better
is
tomorrow.
the man who means to do well tomorrow. He's had a bad season so far. There he is in the McLaren M26, the 1976 world champion. He had a very nasty incident this morning when his throttle stuck wide open coming into Woodcote. He recovered in a masterly fashion, had to go out in the spare car, and even with that disadvantage, he's on the second row of the grid.
Seriously, James, you must tell me about the disciplines of racing at this level at such great speeds. Do you keep to a strict discipline before races and during?
Yes, very much so. Well, I have a system of preparation, physical and mental, that I run through. I think everybody has their own style, you know, every sportsman and things, and mine basically is before a Grand Prix, you know, I train every day physically, run 3 miles and do my round of golf, good exercise, and a bit of squash if I can get any. And then before a Grand Prix, I start building up really on the Tuesday, before we race on Sundays. I start going to bed early and concentrating and not going out and winding down, and I get more and more sort of introverted into the thing, and then we practice on the Friday and Saturday, and the race is on Sunday.
Well, where does the lovely James Hunt of the Dom Perignon champagne and the lovely girls come into your life?
I don't know. In the newspapers, unfortunately. But I tell you what, I hope it'll happen sometime.
How do you relate, car to car, man to man, in a Grand Prix? I mean, are you conscious of people coming alongside you in a straight?
Yes, very much so. I mean, you know, I race against, in Grand Prix racing, we're a group of, well, 26 people qualify for each race. We're probably 20 plus regulars, of which, you know, depending on whereabouts you tend to be in the field, you know each other better. But you get to know all your competitors very well during the course of a season. Well, in fact, it's several seasons we race together. And you can individualize, you know, between characters when you're against them. Obviously, you can recognize every car because cars tend to be only 2-car teams, different helmets and stuff. You can always tell who who you're against, and you treat people a little bit differently when they're alongside.
Mm. I mean, not like jockeys, you can't actually lean out and talk to anybody, obviously.
A bit noisy for a chat, unfortunately.
But there is an odd mixture in motor racing, is there not, between fatalities and festivities. I mean, one minute there are awful stories of car accidents and good friends of yours dying. The next minute there's, again, champagne bubbling around. How do you reconcile this odd mixture?
Well, with difficulty, quite honestly. I mean, you know, when somebody gets hurt, this accident was too, well, that's Nicky's accident. That was, of course, a serious tragedy. You know, I mean, one lives with a cloud over one's head. It's as simple as that. I'm really frightened of dying. I don't want to die. I don't want to see anybody hurt in motor racing, and I think it's, you know, it's an unfortunate thing. It's one of those things when one gets into a sport like that, you don't consider it. I mean, it creates a pressure to get the job done, to retire as soon as you can. I enjoy my racing very much. I love to do it. I like the life it gives me, and I wish I was, you know, I wish it was like golf and I could be playing till I was 45 without the worry of having to get the job done and get out in order to lead the rest of my life, which I'm also looking forward to.
You're obviously madly keen on motor racing as a teenager. I mean, you've read about the car that you put together and without the windows and they wouldn't let you race and all that. But did you visualize then an attitude which you have now of wanting to get out of the game?
Well, I suppose as far, I mean, really, at that age, one doesn't think that far ahead. I mean, one thinks that I'm, you know, some people don't even go into it like this, but I wanted to go into it to get to the top and ultimately to be world champion, and one thinks no further than that. And then, in fact, probably no further than that all the time until then, except for the fact that, you know, by the time I was in Formula One, I knew that I would have a limited span and that I would retire, hopefully, if I could survive to that point, without going on forever. Partly, at that stage, one doesn't want to feel one's flogging a dead horse going along, but also mainly because of the safety thing.
Mm. Quite. How do you reconcile that sort of life with marriage? Well, your married life was very public at one stage, was it not? and
all the time, I think.
All the time. Also, you went down in print as saying that Mr. Richard Burton did you a favour.
Oh, well, yeah, no, but I did. You got it wrong. You took that out of context. I was only thinking that, you know, didn't have to go through a sort of heavy hassle of divorce and all that sort of thing.
Right.
When I was talking about that.
Right, well, put it into...
But I have to say that, you know, I wasn't particularly enjoying being married at that stage, partly because I wasn't ready for it then, but because really that sort of style of life didn't exactly suit me.
Mm. I was going to ask you, how does a wife fit into this sort of travelling life with all the danger involved? Does a Grand Prix driver need a woman there to turn to help, or not? Or is it a solo game?
Well, I think it varies for the individual. I think you could say that in any walk of life. I mean, some people need that, some people don't. I think that for me, I probably didn't, in that, you know, well, put it like this, now I have a very nice girlfriend, and when she's at home, I don't want to leave. And that's not a good thing. I have to go away and work, and I enjoy it at home. But before that, I would enjoy being at home, but I'd also enjoy leafing around and travelling.
Sure.
And whilst I still enjoy it, it's a wrench to go. So that, in a way, probably is a bad thing for my personality. Mm. Although, you know, we both travel a lot, so it's pretty easy.
Can we talk about your home, which is in Marbella in southern Spain? That again sounds terribly glamorous. Did you set out to create some sort of lifestyle for James Hunt?
No, I didn't set out to create anything. I suppose I've been very lucky in that it all sort of happened for me. I didn't have to think about it. You know, my racing, you know, my way of life, my business and things rather dictated to me that. I mean, the fact that I live out of England was dictated by our tax laws, unfortunately, and that sort of thing. So everything really got set up for me. And I'm only just building a home and a personal life right now. Mm. You know, in fact, you know, I'm in the sort of stages at the age of 30 that most people are in at the age of 22. I'm buying knives and forks because we've got nothing to eat with yet. Things like that. plates are a bit of a problem too. We actually do 2 double sittings with plates. We've only got 4, so we sometimes have some people eat on their lap and others go in for the second lap.
Yes. Well, I believe you share your home with 1 dog or more, is it? I know that you...
Yeah, they don't get plates. No,
They don't
I've got
get
2
plates?
dogs, 2 dogs and a cat. Yeah.
And what do they eat? They probably drink champagne?
They eat just about everything. They cost more than the rest of us to feed. Oh, it's frightening.
James, I've recently taken up golf, and I read again about you that you took up golf in 1 year, and the next year, within 1 year, you were winning an RAC competition. How can that be true?
Well, because it was from 18 to 24 handicap people. Good. So that was very much that thing. Mind you, they did say that to me before it and after it that it's that was the most difficult competition in the club to win, because of course between 18 and 24 handicap you get the most burglars.
What do burglars see when they come into your home? They see you getting fit. I mean, what is the daily routine of fitness, and how much does fitness count in the motor racing game?
Fitness counts enormously in the motor racing game. I mean, you know, that's one reason why I can be here tonight for the race where I wouldn't be able to for a Grand Prix, because a Grand Prix is 200 miles, and that really is on the limit of physical endurance with the heat and all the liquid that you lose. We're racing over just over 100 miles tomorrow, and that, of course, isn't the same heavy physical number. But I'm lucky. I keep a natural fitness very easily, and I don't have to work as hard as some of the other drivers who aren't naturally athletic like me. And I get up in the morning, I do walk with the dogs, do a few exercises, and then I play golf, which I do for fun anyway, but that's fresh air and exercise. I play squash if I can get a game, wherever I might be afterwards, or else I run. And that's really all I had to do. Some people have to do a heavy program morning and afternoon.
Well, at first it sounds quite romantic, and to do it in southern Spain, even more romantic. But how long will you stay out of England? Do you want to come back? Are you sad to be out of England?
Yes, I miss England very much. You know, my roots are here, and I shall come back at the first possible opportunity. I'm not necessarily to live here all the time, but I would like to have a home in England, and to alternate, I would like to travel a certain amount, but not as much as I do now, because, you know, with all the travelling that I've done, I'm used to it. But I definitely want a base out of England.
How do you keep one foot in the celebrity world and the world of sponsorship and the other foot in the racing car? Because presumably you have to devote a terrific amount of time to the car and to the job. And yet you're dashing off, well, appearing on shows like this.
Right. You're distracting me, see? The race is dragging me away from winning. No, it's not difficult, you know, because funnily enough, the racing itself is not a heavy time-consuming job. It's not, for instance, like being a tennis player who's playing tournaments if he's winning 6 days a week, maybe as much as 40 weeks in the year. And that doesn't happen to me. I do maybe 20 races a year, 3 days of the actual race. There's more in getting to and fro and that sort of thing. And then maybe another half as much again doing testing and stuff. The rest of the time is free, but then it's working for various things. But I'm quite fortunate. My sponsors are very good to me. You know, Marlborough don't push me about too much. Got that plug in on the live one there.
It's live, yes, we can't take that out.
Who else should I give a plug to while I'm here? You can't hold me off. No, and you know, they understand the job very well. They sponsor me. Naturally, you know, they want their mileage out of me, because that's what they put the money into the car for. So I owe it to them to give them a certain amount of time, but they're very reasonable, and I really only work, you know, maybe 10 to 15 days a year for each of my sponsors. But of course that adds up, and there are all sorts of other things that you have to do, as you well know, being a sportsman, functions that you have to attend and that sort of thing. So it all adds up. But if it's a question of discipline, you know, if one can, you know, one really can work everything in together. The demands on me are not really too great.
How competitive are you?
I'm very competitive. I like to compete in everything.
I mean, if you were going down...
So long as I can like to win.
A lot of ladies laughing around
I
here.
do pick and choose, though, because I don't do it if I don't think I'm going to win.
Oh, you only try if you're going to win. Well, that's fairly
course.
safe. That's
Cool.
fairly safe indeed.
Better to be lucky than good, too.
Is there in this game where, as I say, there's a very sad, morbid side, a great deal of humour? There often is, isn't there, in in sports where there is death lurking around, some great humour?
Yes, I think so. You know, the death thing really is not something that is very conscious on a communal level. You know, it's not something that we really talk about or anything like that. It's something that I think everybody is individually aware of, whether the drivers, with their own individual fears and ideas on the subject. But I mean, I don't find that there's a particularly high level of humour because of that point of view, like there can be under times of real stress. I mean, if people are in an air raid, shot a big bomb, they're either all terrified or they laugh and joke it off, which is the best way of handling it. But, you know, there are a lot of good, intelligent minds and humorous people around, and I find the group that I work with, on the whole, you know, very nice people to work with, and good fun, and light-hearted, and sporting too.
So now I have to ask you, how much longer, and when does retirement come?
Well, I don't disclose that because I'm not certain about it myself, but it won't be very long now. I'm working hard to win the championship this year, and I'd sort of like to have another crack at it next year, because if I don't win it this year, I would like to win it again before I retire, and if I do win it this year, I'll probably have the flavour for it, so I'll still be wanting to win it again. So, you know, probably a couple more seasons anyway, this one and the next.
Yes. Well, I wish you luck. And finally, I'm going to reveal to the public a few private hunt fetishes which no one at all knows about. One is that you're a connoisseur of hamburgers.
Certainly. Yeah, very much so.
How did
and
that
fish
come
and
about?
chips.
And fish and chips.
But I've been practicing on them tonight because we're in England. You know, this is really, you know, outside London, the fish and chips in London, the standards really dropped these days. It's terrible. But I checked out one just off the M1 halfway up here tonight.
And you rate it?
It was pretty good, very good. Yeah.
And the other thing...
Thank you. Chips are a bit hot to eat, though. Burnt my tongue.
Chips are too hot.
Yeah, I think temperature's important as well.
Yes. Did they recognise you when you went in?
Yes, we had a chat.
Yes.
I told them I was doing a survey. I thought they might pull out the good ones for me.
And lastly, few people know, I think, that you play the trumpet.
Yeah, that's right, but I'm staying well clear of that, thank you.
Well, we leave it to
We'll
the
leave
expert.
the experts, right.
And the expert, of course, is Kenneth Ball & Co., and it's Steamboat Stomp.
Kenny Ball and his Jazzmen. Ladies and gentlemen, Ginger Rogers.
Welcome. Thank you.
I never thought the day would come when I would sit and talk to Ginger Rogers. How about that?
Ah, thank you, dear.
I'll tell you something that's always puzzled me when I used to watch you on the silver screen. Why on earth, when your hair is so obviously blonde, do they call you Ginger?
Well, actually, you see, my real name is Virginia. And my little cousin, who could never say that because she was a very tiny one, and she called me Ginger, and then it finally got to be Ginger. And it's not unusual in the States to have a Ginny as a Virginia. And then sometimes they do call them Ginger. But it doesn't have anything to do, as it does in this country, with the color of the hair.
So, but it really goes back way beyond the showbiz days.
Oh, yes, when I was just a widow thing.
I used to...
I was, you know. Once.
I used to see you in those musical spectaculars. I mean, they really were spectaculars. I'm going back now to the Busby Berkeley days. The kind of films
42nd Street.
We'll never see those again. I mean, they could never make them again.
No, they were really amazing. He was a very talented gentleman, Busby Berkeley. He really gave something to this business of making films. But no, it's too expensive today to make musicals, and it seems that some of the musicals that have been made have cost so much they've never been able to get the nut back on them. So
And they were made, of course, in a day, you know, in the days when the world was in ferment. They offered gloss and glitter and glamour.
Yes, and an escape. I think the trouble today is that we do not have enough films whereby one can really escape. You have too much of four-letter words and terror and immorality in films, and you see, that is not, I don't consider that entertainment.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
But when you say there was escapism, Ginger, I mean, what was it like behind the scenes? I mean, what was it like physically to work on a production like that?
Well, it was a very demanding thing, Bob, because you see, we had to start work in the morning. For example, if we did a number like the Continental, we started in the morning, and we would rehearse it all afternoon, all early morning. Then we would put our costumes on and start shooting around 11, call lunch, and after that, then we would keep dancing, and we always had one camera. And we'd keep dancing and dancing and dancing until they said, all right, it's time to stop for dinner, which would be about 8 o'clock. And they'd stop for an 8 o'clock dinner, and you'd run out and get something to eat and come back. And then you'd work right on until 6 o'clock the next morning. And I had it happen to me that when we were doing that particular film and that particular number, having danced the whole day through without really any time to rest, at 6 o'clock in the morning, they came up and they said, all right, everybody else can go except Ginger. And I said, what are you going to do to me, beat me? And they said, no, this is the time we're coming into a real big close-up. And that's the close-up that's in the film. I kid you not. And we didn't have a Screen Actors Guild at that time. And I think that has helped considerably. But the actor, the poor actor, is the last one really to receive any protection, I think.
So they really would work you on 24 hours?
24 hours, right round the clock, round the clock.
You mentioned they used one camera. You can actually see, if you look at those old movies, that they very rarely cut. So, in fact,
True.
an entire sequence would be done on one camera. That presumably meant you had to get the steps exactly right as they were doing it.
And if you made a mistake, which occasionally I did, of course, I'd trip over something or turn my heel. We were dancing on really very highly polished. It was like a marble floor, only it was a false marble floor. And it was highly, highly polished. And they would go out and wax it just before we danced on it. And so you'd go out there and you'd see what you were going to have to contend with, and you'd have to sort of hold yourself in place so that you wouldn't fall down. But high heels, ladies generally know, with high heels on a very shiny floor, you can just step wrong, and you don't have to dance wrong. You can just step wrong, and you can be, down on your knee. But not too often did a thing like that happen. But if it did happen, what I was telling you was that we had to start from the beginning again, you see, and then you go through the
and
entire
shoot the whole
number.
thing again.
Shoot the whole number again.
And what about the girls who weren't the stars? You know, the Busby, Berkeley girls. Was it as tough for them? I mean, did they sometimes, as in 42nd Street, actually literally collapse with exhaustion? Did that sometimes happen?
Yes, I've seen some of them just carried out.
Yeah.
But, you have to be a very strong stock. And I am, I must say. I've come from a very good stock. As a matter of fact, there's a lot of the English and Irish and Scots in me. And,
Your mother was Scottish, wasn't she?
No, my mother was Welsh,
Your mother
Irish,
was Welsh.
German.
Your father was Scottish.
My father was a Scotsman.
I knew I got that.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Yeah.
let's...
The British Isles and me too.
I was half right. Let's look back to those golden days of Hollywood with a very famous film now, Top Hat. Now, normally when we show a film clip, we tend to show a minute or a couple of minutes, but because this is the kind of film we never see made again, let's watch, well, practically the whole number in its entirety. We'll indulge in a spot of nostalgia here. This is a scene which you do with the inimitable Fred Astaire and what appears to be the whole city of Venice crammed into the studio. Top Hat.